Hi, welcome to Well Rounded Momma's YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. If you find this video helpful, like, subscribe, ring the bell. We would love it, especially if you would put a little like. That would be helpful for us across the board. So my name is Sherry. I'm a midwife in the Las Vegas Valley, and this is Shana. She is our office manager and insurance biller. We are here to answer your questions about
insurance. All the questions.
Insurance.
We get tons of questions.
Insurance versus cash pay when it comes to paying for your birth. Cash is so easy because we know what to expect. We know what our overhead is. We know what fees are getting taken out of. We know what we can throw in as part of your care in your package. Whereas insurance is so much more complicated because it's not straightforward. Especially when you know at the end of the day, insurance's job is to pay the least amount possible. So let's talk a little bit about that. Well Rounded Momma is only a network with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yes.
So ask your midwife if you live somewhere else who she's a network with, but we are only a network with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Otherwise, we can just work with PPOs, and we look like out-of-network providers for a PPO. So you have in-network benefits and you have out-of-network benefits. Some policies have no out-of-network benefits, and usually they're referred to as an HMO. For example, Health Plan of Nevada is usually just an HMO. They want you to see their care providers. We are not in network with that. They will pay sometimes for ultrasounds, sometimes they'll pay for labs, they'll pay for as midwives, we want your insurance to work for you as much as possible. However, they just won't pay us because of the way that our state and licensure is laid out. So anything that the state of Nevada is involved in, which is Health Plan of Nevada, Sierra, Teachers Health Trust, Culinary, TRICARE even. So like even if you're military, because of the laws here, TRICARE follows what the laws are, and that is that there's no regulation over CPMs in our state. So TRICARE is not considered in-network for us as midwives. Now, that may change for us in the near future. However, as of right now, it's only Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we're willing to work with PPOs. So United, Cigna, HealthScope, all of those kinds of places do take work with out-of-network.
Yes.
Usually. And what does that mean for you? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. A client comes in, they fill out a verification of benefits. You want to tell people what that means?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, we used to have a form that people filled out, but to make it less complicated, I really just need your insurance information. So like your insurance ID number and the group, what insurance you have, the primary's date of birth, first and last name, and then if you're under your spouse or a family member, it would be nice to have your information too as well, just so I know whose chart I'm putting it in.
And something to remember about that, for example, if you are on your parents' insurance still, which can happen up to age 26, that will pay for the birth and your care, but won't cover anything for the baby. Just little things to keep in mind and lots of good questions to ask. So we take copies of your cards, your IDs, the information on who the primary holder of the insurance is. She either goes online or she calls to find out what your benefits look for. Yeah. That's where people get confused, is they don't understand then the information that comes back to us. So you have 3 things that could possibly be part of what your insurance is. The first thing you have is you have a deductible that you have to meet. Usually you have an individual deductible and a family deductible. So say you have a $2,000 deductible. You can meet that deductible anywhere so long as it's in network, right? And here's what you have to remember is if we look like we're out of network, that goes to your out of network deductible. If we're in network, it goes to your in network deductible. And you have 2 separate things depending on whether you're in network or you're out of network. And that deductible has to be met before your insurance will pay out anything. However, we like to keep in close contact, and a lot of the midwives are a little bit more fluid with the deductible since that can get met maybe doing ultrasounds, or if you went to the ER with a complication, all of that could go to your in network deductible. Yeah. The second thing is a copay. A lot of people, maybe it lists that you have a $10 copay every time you have an office visit. If you have a $10 copay, you're looking at like $100-ish. Yeah, the last thing is your co-insurance. So you have a percentage. It's a 70-30, 80-20, sometimes it's 100%. But whatever that percentage is, we're required to collect whatever percentage that we expect to collect. So here at Well Rounded Momma, we charge $4,000. That's pretty average for a home birth in the United States of America, is about $4,000. What we're doing is collecting against that. So for example, if we are collecting 10%, we're going to collect $400, regardless of what your deductible is and what your copays say. The co-insurance, there's no budging on.
Yeah, no, that is your patient
Unfortunately,
responsibility.
that's your patient responsibility. We collect all of that prior to delivery because people get kind of confused because the way that maternity care works versus other care is we are only allowed to bill the initial appointment. So we bill the initial appointment. That's great. That's helpful because it lets us know exactly where we sit. Is our numbers right? Are they going to cover it? If there's any question, that kind of gets finalized when we bill that initial. Then we cannot bill again until you have your baby. And so after you have your baby, we then bill for baby. Now, for a couple of your postpartums are included in that, and then we start billing for baby for postpartum. But generally, we don't do that till you're about 2 months postpartum. By billing all of that, what happens is insurance can take their sweet time to pay out. So there are some individuals that we are still waiting on insurance checks over a year ago. And so it takes a really long time for your care provider to actually get paid on insurance. It's not like something that happens right away. You have your baby, we bill your insurance, and now we know if you have a refund coming, or it takes time. Your insurance can ask for a refund at any time from us. Anytime. Why do they do that? Because they'll go through their records and they're like, oh, we shouldn't have paid that much on a postpartum visit. We would like that $300 back. And they could ask for that at any time. So it's always really risky when we're dealing with insurance because the insurance company, remember, their job is to not pay us.
Pay as little as possible.
And those refunds, if we want to continue getting insurance checks, we have no choice but to give that money back. But here's some other things that I want you to think about when it comes to paying for your midwife and your care provider. Lately, especially with COVID and people are struggling with getting by, we've been getting a lot of refund requests, especially from clients who transported to the hospital because of a complication. Here's some things to remember. When you hire a midwife, you are paying for midwifery services. You are not paying for home birth. I'm going to say that again. When you hire a midwife to have a home birth, you are paying for her skills, her time, her on-call lifestyle. It is not in any way, shape, or form a guarantee that you will get a home birth. And so we get a lot of requests for home births for people who didn't get home. If you transported to the hospital because of a complication, it means your midwife did her job.
Facts. Right
Send her flowers. Because you know what? We hate transporting. It eats us up the way it eats anybody else up. You're not due a refund if you did not stay home. In fact, it complicates things for us on our end because we can no longer bill for the birth. No. So we might have been sitting with you for 2 days and we transport you to the hospital. We can't bill for the birth now. So all we can bill for are prenatal appointments. The problem with that, there's often something called a time limit.
That's what it is.
The time to bill expires for us on our end. Come time you transport, we go back to bill your prenatals. They're only going to cover some of them and some of them that fall within a timely filing. They're not going to cover the prenatals we did at the very beginning, except for that initial.
We've even had some other care providers that bill certain codes, and then so when we go to bill it, they're like, oh, we're not going to pay you because this other care provider billed this certain code and it kind of relates to it. So it's a huge bummer for us because then the midwife doesn't get paid on the visits that they did.
The other thing I kind of want to address is not only are you paying for that midwife to be on call, but your midwife has overhead. And overhead runs between 30 and 50% of what we collect. A lot of times for our midwives, they're bringing home half of what you actually pay them. Because at the end of the day, after they've paid for bank fees, taxes, childcare, gas, their on-call lifestyle, anything that have fallen in that, supplies, rent, insurance, equipment, they're bringing home between 50 and 70% of what you actually pay them. And so some other things besides transporting that don't count. One is you are considered paid in full come 28 weeks. And this is something to remember. Once you hit your last trimester, your midwife now takes a certain amount of clients. So here at Well Rounded Momma, we only take 6 clients a month. Come 28 weeks, unless we can replace that due date, we're now out anything that we would have taken because what you're paying for is to hold that spot. So if something happened, you moved or a complication arose, once you hit that last trimester, genuinely you're not due a refund. You might be due some type of a refund, but it's not going to be your full refund. This is why I highly encourage you to read your contracts because your contracts are very straightforward on how it works. And you'd be surprised. I am surprised. We get more placenta refund requests than anything else. I seriously have considered just walking away from placentas because people change their mind and then they want all their money back and they don't understand how that works. Some other things that we also get a lot of questions is what happens when somebody comes to us late in care?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Nothing. Your midwife puts the same amount of time and effort into your care. In fact, most of the time, we have to work harder. What happens is we're willing to then start paying for childbirth education, doing longer prenatal visits. The investment is the same. Just now, instead of doing that over 6 months, we're doing that over 3-month period of time because the preparation for you to have a home birth is the same and the liability is the same. We're still coming into your house. We're still performing a home birth. The insurance companies don't care that we only saw you for 3 appointments. The liability is the same. I want to say we're looking for some type of an investment into your home birth. If you don't invest into your home birth, which means you showed up to your appointments, you went to classes, you read books, you watched videos, you educated yourself on what the process is, you took some responsibility and liability for your care, your midwife is not going to invest more into your home birth than you are.
No.
She cannot make up the difference. And so whether you come late or early, or you have insurance or you don't have insurance, we're looking for an investment in your home birth. Whether that be financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, we are looking for an exchange of energy because there are plenty of clients I take for way less.
It's because you're too nice.
I care a lot about the community that I serve, and it's my choice, right?
Yes.
That's
good
the
midwife.
difference. The difference is you aren't telling me what I'm worth. I'm deciding what I'm worth. For me, I just want clients to understand up front what that looks like. And you can't ask too many questions when it comes to your insurance. Here's a couple other things that I thought of as we were talking is a lot of times people will try to switch over to Blue Cross Blue Shield because we're a network or they come up with for open enrollment. One of the most important things, because when Obamacare happened, they said pregnancy could no longer be considered a pre-existing condition. However, that didn't change the fact that insurance companies could have a policy that said you need to have our insurance for X amount of time before we will cover this particular experience. Make sure you ask your insurance company, how long do I have to be on this insurance plan for you to cover something like a birth? That's kind of what we're looking at when it comes to insurance versus cash. Insurance is complicated for sure. Yeah. Just some things to think about, just some things. Because as midwives, we're so invested in our clients' care. And maybe before 28 weeks, revisit where you're sitting with your midwife. Don't wait till 40 weeks to express you've got a problem. Have that conversation with her regularly. Make sure you are making regular payments.
Yes.
That would be the last thing that I would do because I think so many times people think something will happen in the future that will make this obligation to pay for a home birth. But if you come in and you at least show that you're paying something, because I've had clients come in and pay $20 toward their balance. To me, it's a good faith. It's all about showing good faith. It's more important to me to show that you are putting forth an effort. But I've had a handful of clients in the last 2 years put nothing towards their prenatal care, labor, and delivery, and then come 40 weeks, they don't have anything, and now they want to renegotiate terms.
Which I think is super unfair because that's not
well, there's
fair
nothing
to you.
There's nothing to renegotiate. At that point,
you're giving them
you've invested nothing. Whereas even if you made a $20 payment at every one of your appointments, there was some kind of good faith being shown. But if you haven't paid anything toward your care provider, it's going to be really difficult to convince her that you've made an investment, or them. Remember, this is just, we want you to have a successful outcome. And I would say the number one time that we transport or we don't have a successful home birth, remember about 3% of the time we're seeing a problem or a complication. An additional 7% of the time, we have somebody who maybe didn't feel as safe at home as they wanted to. They didn't have the support that they needed, and it was just a lack of communication throughout the entire pregnancy. Maybe the partner wanted it more than you did. Like, we see that all the time. And so make sure you're keeping lines of communication open with anyone who's going to be attending the birth, whether that be midwife, assistant, doula, friend, family member, partner.
Definitely your partner.
Keep those lines of communication open so that if there's red flags, you can address those sooner than later and we can get you where you need to be. And because we want you to have a positive birth outcome, regardless of whether that's at home or at a hospital. It's really important to us that you feel heard and that your needs are being met just as equally as the midwife's needs are being met. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we answered all of your questions about insurance.
I know. Hopefully.
If not, ask down below. We're happy to go in there and answer any questions you might have about insurance. And we're always happy to clarify what a verification of benefits looks like for our clients. We do send out final letters here. When you get a final letter in the mail, the majority of the time in the bottom you'll see in red it says, your account is paid in full and you are clear and we're good to go. Occasionally we have maybe a small balance, maybe a lab bill or something that didn't get paid. And then we just ask that you make payments on those because we try to collect all of our payments by 36 weeks or at least by the time the baby comes because we never want to be a burden to our clients postpartum, not financially or any way. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for looking into midwifery care. Thank you for exploring your options. Your options. Your options.
It's Monday, it's fine.
Thank you for exploring your options. It just tells us that you are really looking for the best outcome for you and your family. Hopefully you had a wonderful Halloween weekend and you are hiding all the treats in the house now so that your life can start resuming back to normal and that you're dedicating the month of November to celebrating family, friends, and loved ones. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Did it start?
Yeah.
Oh, we sure. Okay. I feel like there needs to be like, we start. It should be like the countdown when you're ready to take a picture. 10, 9, 8. Okay. We get tons of questions. So we're coming to you the day after Halloween.
Yes, recovering from that.
We feel like we should be in bed right now. But we're going to talk about difficult things instead.
Yes.
Why not?